Okay, so hear me out. Bastiodon might be kind of wild. This thing's got wicked defenses with its 168 physical defense and 138 special defense. Its base 60 HP is a little bit to be desired, and this thing does get obliterated by its two 4x weaknesses to ground and fighting. And yes, Coridon is a thing. But Bastiodon might be alright, because we do have Tera, and outside of having a weakness to water, Steel Rock actually has a lot going on for it. It's immune to poison, it's got two 4x resistances to flying and normal, and then it resists Bug, Psychic, Dragon, Rock, Fairy, and Ice. So overall, it might be okay. So why are we talking about Bastiodon? Well, Bastiodon might be able to be a budget Zamazenta. Now, the main thing that's kind of holding it back is that HP stat, because base Zamazenta with no investment, 167 HP. Bastiodon with max investment into its HP, 167. But Bastiodon's special defense is only 2 points less than Zamazenta's, and its physical defense is actually higher than Zamazenta's. So you might be able to use it as that budget Zamazenta if you don't have one, or if you just want to play a different restricted legendary in general. Like maybe you want to play Miraidon, you can throw Bastiodon on there, and you have something that's close enough to a Zamazenta. What makes Bastiodon really appealing too is the fact that it also gets body press, iron defense, and wide guard, all like Zamazenta. And the nice thing here too is because body press uses your physical defense to calculate your damage, you don't need anything into your attack, which is great for Bastiodon since it only has a base 52 attack stat, in that base 47 special attack is not helping you out at all. So basically here, if we get a little bit of redirection support going on for Bastiodon, we pop an iron defense off, we're getting tankier, and we're doing significantly more damage with our body press. We have great anti-spread move coverage with wide guard here. We don't have to worry about the likes of Precipice Blades, Origin Pulse, Glacial Lance. I mean, Glacial Lance kind of just bounces off Bastiodon to begin with, but the main thing here is we can cancel out these spread moves. Choice Specs Miraidon really likes to run Discharge too, so we can cancel that out as well with Wide Guard, which is going to be really helpful with Bastiodon. And between these three moves, it kind of leaves your fourth move slot open. You could run Protect if you wanted to, just to keep Bastiodon alive a little bit longer, or you could run something like maybe Roar. Roar here has a -6 priority, so it's incredibly slow. Not that that matters for Bastiodon, because Bastiodon itself is incredibly slow. But the main reason why I bring up that -6 priority is the fact that Trick Room is a -7 priority. So unless you're going up against something named Hatterene, you can roar out opposing Trick Room setters if you don't want to play in Trick Room, which ironically enough, Bastiodon would probably have a decent time in Trick Room, but you could roar away Trick Room setters if the rest of your team does not fare well in Trick Room. You could also roar away setup sweepers. Maybe a Groudon comes in and they're getting a little bit cocky in front of you. They go for a Sword Stance, a bulk up. Well, not today. We have a Roar to get rid of them. So Roar could be a really fun option on Bastiodon. Another thing here too is you could run Taunt. Now this is incredibly slow coming off of Bastiodon, but maybe you are playing in the Trick Room and now you have an incredibly fast Taunt under Trick Room. Bastiodon also speed ties Amoonguss, so just keep that in mind as well for how slow this thing is. You could potentially win the speed tie, especially if you have a negative speed nature here, like say maybe Sassy or oh, sorry, that's Timid. I don't want Timid. I want Sassy here. So anyways, say you run a Sassy nature on here. Well, now with 0 IVs and that hindering nature, you're hitting 31 speed. You could potentially win the speed tie against the Amoonguss, taunt them, and now they just do not have a Spore, which could be really handy. Or you could just lock out redirection, maybe you get rid of a Rage Powder, maybe you get rid of something's Follow Me. Or what you could do too is you could go the fun route with it, and you could run Foul Play. Bastiodon gets foul play, which means that terrible attack stat that I mentioned, you really don't need to worry about it now because foul play uses the opponent's attack stat to calculate the damage. And the nice thing here is foul play is a dark type move, which means you have a opportunity to hit the ghost types that would straight up wall your body press. So you could use foul play to get a little bit of damage, or you could rely on Bastiodon's partners to do something like that instead. But foul play on Bastiodon, especially if your opponent sets up, is going to hit incredibly hard. If you get a Calyrex Ice Rider on your opponent's side of the field, maybe they get a Chilling Neigh boost, or maybe they go Swords Dance, well, foul play is just going to absolutely obliterate them, especially if you get a Helping Hand boost. If you have a +2 Calyrex Ice Rider that still has its Psychic typing, and you have that foul play, you're doing major amounts of damage to them. And if you have an Iron Defense boost, you could even survive whatever the Calyrex throws your way, especially if you Terastallize away from your Steel Rock typing to dodge the high horsepower. You take that attack, no problem, and then you clap back with the foul play, and you can do some major damage. So that is a really fun idea for Bastiodon. As far as Tera options go, I really like both Fairy and Ghost for this thing, because one thing that can be a huge problem is Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword here bypasses the target's stat boost. So say, for example, Chen Pao. Chen Pao is really common. We pop this thing into level 50 here. Say we have a max attack Chen Pao with an adamant nature here. We're looking at 189. We don't want to take a Sacred Sword, especially if we've already burned our Tera off of one of our other Pokemon that's not named Bastiodon. Well, here's the thing. Because Iron Defense is boosting up our defense, normally we wouldn't have to worry about that, but Sacred Sword bypasses that. We're 4 times weak to fighting. We do not want to take that Sacred Sword, so we could go Tera Fairy to gain a resistance to Sacred Sword, or we could just outright go Tera Ghost. Now, the reason why I'm putting Tera Fairy here as well is if we went Tera Ghost, sure, we now become immune to Sacred Sword and Body Press off of, say, Zamazenta, but that opens us up to Wicked Blow off of Urshifu Single Strike. Wicked Blow is a guaranteed critical hit, so that will still bypass all of the defense boosts from Iron Defense anyways. So if we resist both Dark and Fighting with the Fairy typing, we don't have to worry about that. And plus, having that Tera Fairy would also keep us in a neutral matchup against Astral Barrage off of Shadow Rider. We don't have to worry about Moongeist Beam off of Lunala, or, you know, Fluttermane. Seeing as Fluttermane is still incredibly common, so we can also have that Tera Fairy just to help Bastiodon. Now, another thing too, as far as Bastiodon's abilities go, I really like Soundproof. It is Bastiodon's hidden ability, and it is a little bit of a very, very specific matchup here, but Soundproof protects Bastiodon from sound-based moves. And one thing that I can think of right off the top of my head that could be a little bit of a problem for Bastiodon is Ursaluna Blood Moon. Ursaluna here is a normal ground typing, and it tends to like to run Blood Moon here, which is a base 140 move that can't be fired consecutively, so they tend to like to double up with Hyper Voice. Now, none of this is new, but the thing here is Ursaluna Blood Moon typically runs Earth Power, Hyper Voice, and Blood Moon. If you have that Soundproof and say you tear it away from your ground weakness right here, well, now the only means of Ursaluna being able to hit you is either with Blood Moon, which they can't fire back to back, so if it does a lot of damage to Bastiodon, great, and you survive it, they can't fire a second one off. You can always redirect away the following Earth Power, because now they don't have access to that spread move to hit your Bastiodon, and then Bastiodon itself can maybe go for the Iron Defense when it takes the Blood Moon, and then if its partner redirects away the follow-up Earth Power, well, Bastiodon can clap back with a Body Press. Ursaluna Blood Moon loves to run Tera normal to double up on that normal type stab, so you get that Bastiodon set up, and then you can just hit them with that body press and do some major damage to this thing, because at the end of the day, it's a +2 body press that is going to be super effective, coming off of a base 168 defense stat. And as far as the stats go, you can kind of see it here on my screen. I have max HP investment to get that 167. It only takes 76 EVs to get to just under 200 points into your defense. And with that sassy or calm nature, which I originally had on here, with 180 EVs, it brings you up to 199. So you're just under 200 into both of your defense stats. That body press, especially at +2, that is going to hurt. Because once you double that from the +2 defense, you're sitting at just under 300 points. Or rather, you're sitting under just under 400 points right there. That's going to hurt. Oh, and you know what else Soundproof cancels out? Perish Song. You don't have to worry about Bastiodon listening to that Song of Demise and then fainting within 3 turns, which that's just going to be a wonderful bonus effect to have Bastiodon having that soundproof. You don't have to worry about the Perish Song just taking you out in 3 turns, which means Bastiodon can set up, get its iron defense off, and then just go for body presses for days, or provide some support with wide guard. And plus, if you have a Psychic Seed on Bastiodon, Indeedee makes a really good partner here for it, because not only do you get redirection support in the form of Indeedee with Follow Me, but the Psychic Terrain will activate the Psychic Seed, which will also give you a +1 boost to your special defense, which is going to be delightful. Bastiodon having that +1 into its special defense is going to help it get around special attackers, which would be the main way of trying to get around the iron defense boosting defense stat right there. So getting that +1 into Bastiodon is going to be very, very handy. And on top of that, Indeedee also gets Heal Pulse. So you could go for a Heal Pulse into Bastiodon and keep it healthy. Or alternatively too, what you could even do is you could potentially just run a Clefairy with Friend Guard, and then that way Bastiodon's only taking 75% of the damage from attacks to begin with. You could still run Follow Me, and if you're worried about, say, Heal Pulse getting redirected, you could run Life Dew. It's going to be a little bit less HP coming back here, but at least this way you're getting HP back into both Bastiodon and Clefairy. So you could do something like that as well. Now, I'm not saying Bastiodon here is going to come out of 5 separate Pokeballs and just win you every single game, but Bastiodon can be very handy in very specific situations. I think it can actually be a really strong Pokemon to have on your team as an alternative to, say, Zamazenta, just to free up a restricted slot. I honestly think that despite what I just said about the Psychic Terrain, I think Miraidon could be a really good partner for Bastiodon as well, since Miraidon is very fast and Wide Guard could protect Bastiodon from your own discharge. So you could have something like that. You could also run Calyrex Ice Rider, which Calyrex Ice Rider could be really nice here, since you could set up Trick Room with it, or even Indeedee, and then that way you could have the Trick Room up, Bastiodon can set up before its opponents even get to move, and he can do some major damage. And plus, prankster screens like, say, maybe Grimmsnarl, that could be a really good partner as well, since you could have the Light Screen and Reflect up, and then that way too you're taking significantly less damage, while Bastiodon sets up, does some damage with Body Press, and protects the team with some Wide Guards, and you might even get a Foul Play off, or a Roar, whatever that fourth move you chose to be for it. And honestly, I think a really good core for Bastiodon could be the Calyrex Ice, like I just mentioned, but you could also throw in Incineroar, have that Intimidate support as well as Fake Out, and then even say maybe Fluttermane. And ironically enough, after just talking about how to just absolutely destroy this thing, I think Ursaluna Blood Moon could be a really fun partner as well. And then you could have a nice Trick Room mode here. You could run, like, maybe say Heal Pulse and Follow Me on the Indeedee. Maybe you run Dazzling Gleam just to have a little bit of damage output, and then maybe Trick Room or Helping Hand on Indeedee. You could have the Glacial Lance with the high horsepower, Trick Room, and then maybe protect, or if you wanted to run another coverage option, and then that way too you have two different means of setting up Trick Room on the Calyrex. You have your Flare Blitz right here into Incineroar, Parting Shot. We'll get Fake Out here next, and then that way too you have the standard Incineroar shenanigans. You have the Parting Shot to pivot out. You can pivot out into either Calyrex or Bastiodon. Maybe Calyrex is already on the field and you're going for the Trick Room. You could do that. Maybe you bring Incineroar Indeedee. Indeedee goes for the Trick Room, so you Parting Shot off into Calyrex, and Incineroar is still fairly slow, so now Calyrex is getting in safe. Your last slot could be maybe Knockoff. You could even still run Snarl. Snarl could be viable. As far as the Flutter Mane goes, we could run, say, maybe Tera Fairy, if I can find it on here. Maybe we run Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, and then maybe what we could do is we could slap a Choice Specs on here just to get a little bit of extra special attacking damage here, and then maybe Flutter Mane could even have, like, say, maybe Power Gem or Psyshock. I kind of like Psyshock on Flutter Mane, not gonna lie, and then that way you have a means of hitting the physical side with it as well, just in case. We can set that to level 50 here. Maybe we do something like, say, maybe 204 EVs into the special attack. Maybe run some HP investment here, just off the top of my head. Maybe go a little bit heavier onto the HP investment. Maybe go 155. Throw on a Modest Nature so that we have a hard-hitting attack set with the Flutter Mane. Throw some defense in there, and then maybe go 4 and... No, that's 12. Maybe something like that for the Flutter Mane, and then for the Ursaluna, slap a Life Orb on it. Have that Blood Moon, that sweet, sweet Blood Moon for that raw damage. Hyper Voice, Earth Power, and then Protect just to be able to save yourself. And then that way too, you're not having some issues that way. So you could do something like this for the Ursaluna maybe. We'll switch on the Tera Normal. And then that way too, you have the Hyper Voice, you have the Earth Power, you have some big damage just to go right there. So hopefully I set the case here for Bastiodon. I hope you guys might try it out. I'm looking to try it out. I might actually build something like this for the team too. So we'll go from there. And honestly, if you still don't believe me, bring up the damage calcs for this exact spread. Throw on an Iron Defense boost, throw on the Psychic Seed, and just look at the damage that restricted legendaries do to this, especially if you factor in Tera, because man, you could have a delightful time with Bastiodon. I genuinely didn't believe it myself until I started looking into the calcs, and I'm a firm believer of it. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to let me know what you think of the discussion on Bastiodon down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.